There we go. The stream is live. I can't believe, by the way, today I'm going to be looking at two screens. I'm going to be looking at this as my primary screen, but then just because I'm so techie, I'm going to have this one going on the side just to confuse myself even further. So I'm just taking a look at where everybody's coming in from. This is one of my favorite parts of doing these live events is to see literally all corners of the earth. We've got South America, we've got Europe, we've got Canada, we've got America, and we've got, oh, I was going to say, where's Australia? I'm feeling a bit neglected. And then boom, somebody chimes in, Jorg from Australia. So first of all, thank you so much for playing along with our live event today, which is about portfolios. This is one of my favorite things. This is, to me, one of the most interesting aspects of being a photographer is making a portfolio and the trials and tribulations that that's going to force you to jump through. The good news is we have basically three parts today. I'm going to talk at you for a bit here in the beginning. I have a bunch of questions for you. I have a bunch of things that I want you to think about. Part two is we're going to build a portfolio. I'm going to build a mock portfolio from some of the work I just shot in Berlin a couple of weeks ago. I'm not saying it's great, but it's the latest work that I have. And the third thing is we're going to jump back and we're going to take some Q&A because I have a sinking suspicion there's going to be quite a few questions about portfolios. There always is. I find this fascinating. I've been thinking a lot about portfolios in the past few days. And I even wrote a blog post this morning about editing because when it comes to portfolios, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute, when it comes to portfolios, editing is an art form and it can make you or it can break you. So the first thing we're going to do is jump into a keynote because apparently that's what people who know what they're doing do. They jump into keynotes. So I'm going to share my screen. Before I do that, a quick thank you to three people behind the scenes. We have Air, we have Michelle, and we have Kara. And they too are scattered around the globe. I could not do what I'm doing right now. We would not have this program if it wasn't for the three of them working the logistics behind the scenes. They're basically like tech Jedis. They wave their hands and things like this happen. Otherwise, you know me. For all of you who know me from my site and from YouTube, you know I'm not technical at all. So, and Rick just wrote, love the blog post about editing in the 8th image in a 7-image portfolio can break a portfolio. And that's true. That's something we're going to talk about. So here's the thing. I want you to be active in the chat. If you have questions, put them in the chat. If you're confused, put it in the chat. If you have something you want to say, because I'm going to ask you questions while we're looking at this, and I'm hoping that you're going to take the time to respond in the chat. Don't watch Oprah while you're watching me, because I can hear what's going to happen. I'm going to ask a question and you're going to be like, I wasn't paying attention. I was listening to Matthew McConaughey. I love Matthew McConaughey, but he's going to be a movie star forever. And I only have you for about an hour and a half. So bear with me. Okay. Going to share my screen here. I'm going to go entire screen. We're going here and we're going into, let's see here, full screen. Whoops. Back to full screen. And we're going to play. So in case you missed it, this is about portfolios and my portfolios these days. This is one of the best things about being a photographer today is, sorry, getting a ping here. One of the best things about today is that your portfolio can look so many different ways. This was not a portfolio that I built, but it could have been. I could make a portfolio that looks like this. As many of you know, I'm kind of a bird nerd guy now, so I do some birding stuff. I was laying out these sample spreads. If I wanted this to be my portfolio, it could be. So gone are the days of like pages of slides or prints slipped into clear plastic sleeves. We don't need to do that anymore. We are far more sophisticated and far more personal today than we ever have been, and it's pretty exciting. Portfolios can look like this as well, all different shapes and sizes. Most of these on here are mine, except for the lost rolls in the lower right. That's Ron Haviv, the war photographer. But the portfolios can take on a variety of shapes and forms. But this is my first question to you in the chat. What is a portfolio? And the sub question is, how's it different from a book? So no, Reed, I'm not Oprah, but I'm trying to be Oprah. So my first question is, what's a portfolio? And how is it different from a book? And let's go. You're frozen. You're all frozen because you're petrified that I ask you a question, but somebody's going to get this. Ron said, should a portfolio have words? Maybe. We're going to get to that in a minute. But what is a portfolio? Just give me a quick answer as to what it is. Okay, Lepic, a printed version of your best and the work you want to get paid for. Okay, I'm going to leave out the second part of that, and I'm just going to say what you said in the first part, which is a portfolio is a print version of your best work. That is exactly right. A printed portfolio is just a quick sample of your best work that you can put in front of another human being as a way for them to understand the quality of work that you're able to produce. That's it. A portfolio is very different from a book because a portfolio doesn't necessarily tell a story. It tells, in some ways, the story of your quality bar, but you might have a single picture from 10 different projects that together don't tell a story because they're all from 10 different projects, but each one of those images shows the technical mastery or the compositional mastery that you have as a photographer. That's a portfolio. So very different from a book. At the end of this talk, after we do a Q&A, I'm going to give you a bonus tip, which is a bonus use case for what you can do with a portfolio. So make sure you stick around because I purposely put it at the end for those of you who are like, there's no way I'm going to last an hour and a half. Well, I'm going to give you the tip at the end, but that's what a portfolio is. So a bunch of you got that. And Judith asked, does it have to be printed? No, not necessarily. We're going to talk more about this. You should have multiple versions of your portfolio, not just in print, but also in the digital space. So in many cases, the more the merrier, because all the different audiences that you're going after, each one will require a specific kind of portfolio. So we're moving on. If I can get over here, and if my arrow keys work anymore, I guess not. Okay, old versus new. This was my portfolio for 20 years. This was a page of slides. And this was not good because when I started in photography, I did my first portfolio in 1989. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I wanted to tell you that specifically. I did my first portfolio in 1989. It wasn't even a page of slides. It was newspaper clippings that I had cut out and pasted into a book. We're talking rudimentary, very, very basic stuff. I remember I did a project on my friend Sean, who had cerebral palsy. She was learning to walk for the first time. And I did a project. I won a bunch of college photography awards for that. That was the first portfolio. Then I graduated to these pages of slides, which was not a good way to show your work because a lot of people didn't have loops or light tables and they didn't have the ability to see it. So by the way, I found these as I was looking through my slides. That's me in 1993. And that's me in 1995. These are just here for humor. So this is what a modern portfolio can look like. So again, we went from this to having a page of slides or gluing something into a book to having something that looks like this. Every time I do a project, every time I do another photo story of some kind, I come home and I make one of these. These are a little 6x9 Blurb trade book. So look at the sophistication level of where we've gone when it comes to portfolios. The design of this series was my attempt at giving a tribute to the original Life magazine. So the cover design of these is me stealing from the original Life magazine. I just changed the color palette. Life was red and white. These are black and white. And I can tell you a story about these later, but the last really good photography job I had, which was a year-long assignment, that assignment came because the CEO of this company saw these printed portfolios and said, who did these? And I happened to be standing there and I said, oh, those are mine. And he turned to his people and said, this is the guy we're going to hire. So I wasn't looking for that job, but it came because of a printed portfolio piece. All right. Portfolio plural. This is what I want to talk. Another one of the aspects of what I want to talk about is that, whoops. And someone asked earlier if if a portfolio had to be printed. Absolutely not. And when I say it's advisable to make a portfolio, regardless of if you're a consumer, a prosumer, a professional, it doesn't matter who you are. Making a portfolio is a smart move because it forces you to apply critical thought to your photography. It forces you to say, what is the absolute best and only the absolute best? If you go through your photographs and you have a total of 7 that you think are the absolute best you've done, guess what? Guess how many images are in your portfolio? 7. not 8, not 9, not 10. If you think 10 is a nice even number and you're like, wow, I think it'd be really cool if I had 10 and 7 of them are good and 3 of them are not so good. Guess what happens when you put that portfolio in front of a professional? They're going to spot those 3 immediately. And they're going to say, why did you put these 3 in here? You ruined it because these 7 are really good, but these 3 other ones aren't good enough. So portfolios is always plural. There's the expensive, sort of beautiful, large lay flat portfolio that you can make through Blurb when you're at an in-person meeting showing off your work. Those big lay flat books, there is nothing better. But at the same time, making a smaller, less expensive version of it is really smart, because remember, what happens if you go to you show your portfolio to someone and they go, this is really amazing. Can I keep this? And you're thinking, no, I don't want you to keep my lay flat book. This is the only one I have and it was expensive. I don't want to keep it. So what are you going to have? You're going to have a backup that's a smaller, less expensive version of the same portfolio. In addition, you can have a digital portfolio. You can convert, when you upload the book to the Blurb system, you have the option of getting a high-res PDF of that same project. I always keep those PDFs on my phone just in case I'm somewhere where I don't have a piece of printed material. I can go back to the digital version of the PDF. This happens a lot on planes. So when I get on the plane, my strategy is I put in my Apple AirPods, hoping that the person next to me leaves me alone. It never happens. As soon as they see me put my earbuds in, they turn and they start talking to me. And then I go, oh no, here we go. And the second I say I'm a photographer, what kind of photography? What do you do? And they're interested. I think people are, for the most part, are really interested in photography. So I don't always have a printed piece at hand with me. It could be in my check bag. So I have these PDFs on my phone that I can say, look, here's a fully flushed out project via PDF form. I don't have social media. I much prefer to show full projects in PDF form. So think about portfolios, plural, not singular. Specificity. No, Tina, you're not late. You're welcome. You made it. That's all that matters. Specificity of portfolios. So think about this. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, when I built a portfolio, I kind of had to build what I would call a generalist portfolio because I didn't know who I was going to show it to. It could have been a magazine editor. It could have been an agency director. It could have been an art buyer or someone who works at an ad agency. And these are all people looking through different filters that are applying to their specific kind of photography. So if I'm showing to a photojournalism agency, it's very different from showing it to an agent who represents advertising photographers. But I had to make this like nebulous do-all portfolio book, and it always felt incredibly limiting because sometimes they'd look through it and they'd be like, oh, this picture is exactly what we're looking for. None of this other stuff applies to us, but this one thing is good. Fast forward to today. If Michelle, who's on this call behind the scenes for Blurb, let's say that Michelle was an art buyer. Well, and she worked for Chiat in Los Angeles, and that was an agency that I really wanted to get work from. I could make a book specifically. I could make a portfolio specifically for Michelle. So when she opened it, the introduction inside, written, printed into the book could be for her. So that when she opens the book and looks at it, she's like, wow, this portfolio was designed for me. We've never had that ability until print on demand came along. We never had that affordable. You could do it if you were independently wealthy, but now it is a very simple thing to make a specific book for a specific person. And I'll just tell you a quick story. This happened to me one time in all my years at Blurb, 14 or 15 years at Blurb. Hey, Nick Taro from Albuquerque, great bookmakers on the call. So this happened to me one time. I was at the Blurb office, and the head of the New York Art Directors Club came to the Blurb office and had a meeting with 3 of us at Blurb. He walked in with 3 books under his arm. He unwrapped them, handed each of us a book, and he started talking. And as soon as he started talking, I looked down at the book and I kind of looked at it, looked away, went back to listening to him. And then I was like, wait a second. And I realized that the book in my hands was designed and printed and written to me. And the other 2 Blurb folks, their books were written to them. That's what I mean when I talk about specificity of a portfolio. Hang on. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. So, all right. It's being feisty. Specificity, update. This is another beautiful thing when it comes to a portfolio now, is that we can constantly update with our best work. As I mentioned before, I just went to Berlin. I was teaching in Berlin. I wasn't photographing. I was shooting along the side, but my primary directive was to teach and not to photograph. So in terms of the volume of work and the quality of work, I would rate it like C level, D level, but it's what I have. Let's say though that I'd gone to Berlin and I walked away with 3 or 4 images that were right on. I could easily take those and update my portfolio to keep everything current, because a lot of people who look at your portfolios, they kind of want to know how current that work is. You might have done something really well a decade ago, but you haven't really done a whole lot lately. And they go, oh, is this new work? And you're like, well, new in terms of the age of the earth, but maybe not new in terms of my age. So keep it updated. Okay, I made some notes. Some of the challenges, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to ask you this stuff. Switzerland, Adelaide, you just keep coming in from all over. I love this. Okay, what are some possible challenges that could come from having a physical printed portfolio today? Give me a challenge. What might throw a wrench in this whole plan? Anything? This is a little harder. You can't watch Oprah and answer this. There's no way. What could be a challenge? I can think of 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 things. Cost. Okay, that's a good one. That's not on my list, but I'm going to put it on the list. You can do a really inexpensive portfolio, but if you're bent on a lay flat or something that's more expensive and you don't have that budget, you're absolutely right. Color failure, nah, color's pretty good these days. I don't think that's going to be ability. Time, Christine from Norway, no way. Time, nope, because you're a photographer. So having a portfolio as a photographer is essential. It's essential. So you've got to make the time. So I'll tell you. And some of these are going to be, I think, expected, and some are going to be a bit weird. And you're going to say, Milnor, I don't think you know what you're talking about. But I do, because remember, 1989, my first portfolio. I'm an observer more than anything else. Number one, printed portfolios are confrontational because you have to put this down to handle it. Believe it or not, that's a thing now. You have to put your phone down, which is one of the reasons why a printed portfolio is so important. When you get those face-to-face meetings, you want them to put that phone down. You want 100% undivided attention, but getting these printed pieces can be considered confrontational. That's number one. Number two is, back in the day, we used to mail portfolios all the time. If there was an agency in New York and you really wanted to get in and you made contact with someone, or let's say it was a local newspaper or whatever, you could say, can I send you a portfolio? And they'd say, absolutely. And you'd send the portfolio with a self-addressed stamped envelope so that they would send it back. It was no big deal. But now we're in the digital age, and that is less common. So that is one of the challenges. Third, we have a couple of generations of people in the photography space who've grown up with things like Instagram. So it's very common for them to say, I don't need a printed portfolio. Just send me your Instagram feed. Now, I have mixed emotions about this. Anyone who knows me on this call knows I don't have social. I don't particularly like social, but I know that I'm in the minority. And what you want to do is totally fine. It's up to you. It's your life, your decisions. But when someone says to me, just send me your Instagram feed, I automatically, this is going to sound harsh, but it's true. I automatically take them from an A-level client to a B. And if they ask for just the Instagram feed, I know that the likelihood of that client ever going from a B to an A is very slim. And frankly, that has not played well for me in the past when someone says, send me an Instagram feed, because I find it tells me all I need to know about certain aspects of who they are. But this is a real thing now. And again, I realize I'm in the minority. Vast majority of people around me in the photography space have Instagram accounts and they're on them all the time. So I get it. And the wave is moving more in that direction, not away from it. So it's something that you have to make a personal decision about. but it is a challenge with a printed portfolio. And the last challenge is we have fewer opportunities for face-to-face interactions than we once did, because so much of the business of photography is being handled by the digital world and not the interpersonal world. So for example, I am a huge fan of going to portfolio reviews in person with your work. And this is the ideal scenario for a printed portfolio. And I'll tell you this, and this is not a common, this is talked about behind the scenes. I'm doing you a favor here when I explain this. This is talked about behind the scenes, but it's never talked about in public. And Karen, remind me to answer your question in a minute. When you go to an in-person physical portfolio review, one of the really fun aspects of this is, well, first of all, you have to pay. So you pay, which means you're really going to put the effort in to put your best foot forward, because you're having to pay to go show your work to people. But in one day, you could see 10 different people in the photography industry. You could see a guy that makes calendars. You could meet with a book publisher. You could be with a museum curator, a magazine editor. It's really fun. And you're going to get a million different opinions on your work. But there is a huge difference in the consideration of your work when you bring a printed portfolio compared to showing work on a computer or an iPad. The people at the high levels who make decisions, who hold the budgets, they don't like the iPad computer. They want to see print, because print forced you to put critical thought to your work that often doesn't happen in the digital space. And I've had reviewers, I've had really famous photographers, way better than me, way more accomplished to me, who were basically seated next to me at portfolio reviews or in a big line. They were desperate. They didn't have enough reviewers. They call me, so I sub at the last minute, looking at portfolios in 20-minute sessions. And I had one of these legendary photographers end of the first 20 minutes. There's like a little break before the next person comes in, and he turns to me and said, "Why on earth would anyone ever show their work on an iPad?" And I didn't know what to tell him. I was like, "Well, dude, it's 2025. So, they're common." But the point is, print, have it on your iPad. Absolutely. But have it in print for sure. Okay. That was the last part. This is perfect timing. It's almost like we know what we're doing. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to jump out of here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to take a few questions. Let me do this over here. Hang on one second. We are going to take a few questions, and one of them was from, hang on, hold the phone. Hold the phone. I'm going to close that. Okay. Karen, you just asked me something that I said I want you to come back to. Oh, having a website. Absolutely. I am a huge website fan. I know that sounds like 1996, but a website is so much fun. And here's the thing about a website. And take my Shifter site, for example. The Shifter site is just us. So if you have been reading on my Shifter site, or before it was even called Shifter, it was called Smog Ranch for 15 years. If you've been around me for a long time and you've been on that site and you kind of know who the people are in the community, it's just us. There's no algorithm. There's no advertising. It's just me talking to you and you talking to me. And that to me is so invaluable compared to some of the noise of online things where you just have to perpetually feed that slot machine of social. And it kind of feels like at times, well, your stuff may or may not be being seen. Websites are fantastic. Not to mention it shows your work in massive scale. Like I'll go to Jimmy Chin's website, and Jimmy Chin, who's the climbing photographer, he's a climber and a skier and a photographer. He won the Academy Award for Free Solo, the movie. I go to his website and I have no interest in photographing what he's photographing. None. And I don't have the ability to do it. But I go to that site just to look at the work, just to appreciate what he's doing. Now, the dude has like 4 or 5 million followers on Instagram. I will never see his work on Instagram. I don't want to, because I don't need to. I got the website. So yes, the website, think of it as another version of a portfolio for you. Great question. Let's see. Let's take another one. Can a portfolio be the same as a series? Nadine. Hello, Nadine. Yes, I think I know what you're getting at. I think one interesting thing and a question that we have to ask ourselves when we make a portfolio is, do we want to make one encompassing portfolio, or do we want to make a series of portfolios that are the same size, the same shape, the same paper, the same page count, that are all could work as like a box set? My opinion is you do both, because certain clients are going to respond to the series. Because when you spread out on the table a stack of, let's say, 7x7 soft cover Blurb books with Proline eggshell paper, which is one of my favorite combos, that's what we're going to lay out here in a minute. When you look at that as a collective of books, it's pretty cool. People respond. They go, wow, these are all yours. But at the same time, if you've only got a couple of minutes with someone and there's no way they're going to get through that stack, you have a be all end all. And here's the thing. Here's the most important part of all of this is the mental hoops that you have to jump through to make these portfolios will make you a better photographer, because you're going to see what you have. And more importantly, you're going to see what you don't, because when you start laying out a portfolio, you're going to be like, oh no, at least I do. I think to myself, like this Berlin thing we're about to jump into. You'll see there's 40 images in the folder that I'm gonna load into Bookright. Well, guess what? There's nowhere remotely close to 40 good images from my Berlin thing. That was me being lazy. When I went through the take, I just basically, anytime I had an emotional response to an image, I put it in the folder. Well, there's maybe half a dozen, maybe 6, 8, 10 total images that I would ever want to show anyone from that shoot. It's not great. But the fact that I had to come to that conclusion by looking through all that work, that's what it means to be a photographer. You're not a hobbyist. This is more than a hobby. It's your passion. You want to get better at it. And making a portfolio is one of the best ways to do that. And again, if you have 7 good images, that's how many are in your portfolio. And frankly, 7 good images, that's a pretty good place to be. I think I think a lot of times the numbers in the modern era have been skewed because it's so easy to make photographs. We have phones and mirrorless cameras and social networks to put stuff on. It's been referred to as the great deluge of imagery. And so you start to think that maybe some of these things that you're making, wow, these are pretty good. Like people responded to it. Wow, they said it was great. But ultimately you realize it's probably not that great. There's only a handful of things that are that great. Okay, let's take one more and then I'm going to open Bookright and I'm going to try to make a portfolio. Okay. Ooh, this is a long one. This is from Rick in India. I'm saving India, by the way. I had a chance to go. It was a short trip. I said no. They asked me to teach. It was like 4 days. I'm like, I'm not going to India for 4 days. I'm saving it for when I'm like, I don't know, 80. And I have the rest of my life in front of me. I have a plan of story-based magazine based on a 4-year project that recently ended. Can I use that same magazine, which is story-based, as a portfolio, or should I make a separate one? You should make a separate one. You should make a separate one, because here's the tragic truth. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is my job. And I'm going to show you this when I build a portfolio, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm not, and it's true. When you're at a portfolio review, it is not the time and place that someone is going to read your story. Things are moving too fast. At most, you have a 20-minute time frame with each person. And there's always that little bit of awkwardness at the beginning, because oftentimes these are people you haven't met, and they're people who are significant players in the industry, and you might be a little bit nervous. But the cool thing about a portfolio review is that it's not just about your imagery. They will make a decision on your imagery within seconds, maybe a minute, by looking at those images. They're not going to read anything. In fact, they won't read the title. They won't read the subtitle. They won't read the dedication, at least in a meeting like that. They're looking strictly at the images to see if you can produce a level of image that will work for them. The second they've made that decision, here's where things get interesting. Now, they might be technically holding your beloved printed piece. And the printed piece has done exactly what you intended it for. It showed them that you could produce at the level that they need. But now they're looking at it, and they're looking at you, and they're looking at you. They're looking at how you're dressed. They're listening to your vocabulary. They're asking you about your work, and they're hoping They're hoping, they're lighting candles to the fact that you can speak about your work in a cohesive, intelligent way. It's Rick, tell me about this story in India. Why did you choose that? And boom, you have a 30-second elevator pitch as to what you were doing and why. That's what they're waiting for. And the reason they're doing this, the reason they're looking at you and your clothes and your vocabulary is because they're asking themselves, gee, I now know that Rick can produce good imagery, but do I trust him with the client? Do I trust Rick in the field? Is Rick going to be on the set with a customer and talk about how many fluoride elements are in his lens? No, that's not what they want. They want you to be able to have an updated, modern, current event conversation with a client. So there's so much more about portfolio reviews, and that printed portfolio was your foot in the door. So make a separate one, just have imagery. And then if the person says, wow, this work is really interesting, tell me more about this story, you can say, oh, here's the actual full reportage. And by the way, it's printed in, you're not telling them this, but it's printed in magazine form, so it's inexpensive. Go ahead and keep it. Yep, go ahead and keep that. If you find that story interesting, then that copy's for you. That's how you strategically use multiple copies. All right, let's get to the building. What do you say? I'm going to share my screen again, Michelle. And let's see here. I'm just looking at the, okay, we're going to start this. Why not? Entire screen, going to go blank. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Blurb Bookwrite. Very exciting. It's opening on this other screen. Just bear with me a second. I'm going to move it over. Here we go. So when you open Bookwrite, you're going to be greeted by this. And I'm going to say create. I'm going to do you move this over here. I'm going to do a photo book. I'm going to do a standard landscape, which I never do. I'm going to choose superfine eggshell. There's no right or wrong here. Paper is a personal preference, and it takes a little bit of experimentation if you haven't done that. I'm going to choose eggshell, and I'm going to go soft cover. I love this combo. I want to spend money on the paper. I want to save money on the cover. And a soft cover is a little less threatening. So a soft cover is like your best friend in high school. It's like there's no rules. You can do anything, say anything, and they're going to be your friend. All right, so we're going to do test. Whoops, test with 1 T. We're going to put author name. It's going to be old Uncle Dan. And I'm going to save this to my desktop just for fun. Save. Start new project. This is asking me where I want to get the photos from. I'm going to select them. And I'm going to go here to this one, Berlin edits. And I told you before, there's 40 pictures and there's nowhere close to 40 on here. So, okay. So what you're looking at now is the Blurb interface for building. I'm going to place them. This is asking me if I want Bookwrite to save me a bunch of time. If I hit this orange button, the world ends because it just takes everything in this folder and goes, whoosh, and the book is done in like a matter of seconds. But no, we're better than that. We're photographers and we're building a portfolio. So I'm going to place them myself. So this is the interface. You're looking at the pages here. And for those of you who haven't seen Bookwrite, this is your basic interface. If you've never used Bookwrite, just realize compared to many of the applications that you're using on a daily basis, whether it's Photoshop or Microsoft Word or whatever, this is far less complex, but it will still require a few test drives. You have to get used to it. So what we're looking at here is front cover and back cover. And then we have the inside cover and we have the rest of the pages of our book here. So I'm just going to start building. And this is like real time what we're doing here. So I'm going to try something. I'm just going to place a photo on. And again, people, this is not going to be perfect. I'm going to be moving quickly. I'm looking for, what am I looking for? I'm looking for this picture right here, which is a bit odd, a bit nebulous. This was shot from one building to the next. Hang on a sec. Let me go over here. This was shot from one building to the next. But it's kind of a generically, I think it's interesting. It kind of looks like a painting. It could work for what I need. And I'm going to leave that for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place some text over this. I'm going to go here and I'm going to click in this box and I'm going to say Milnor, return plus, return Berlin. Now I'm going to select all of that, which you can just barely see right here because it's tiny. And I'm going to go up to like, I don't know, let's go 144. I don't like this typeface at all. I'm going to scroll down, and wherever it stops, I'm going to choose one because, again, this is a test, Milnor in Berlin, but that's impossible to read. I also like the lowercase, kind of like that. I'm going to change this color. And because I am a risk taker, I'm going to go bright yellow. Never done that before. Also, I don't like how this is left justified, so I'm going to go right justified. And I'm going to move this just kind of quickly. And if I go to preview, sorry, it's previewing up on the other screen, but that's what we're getting. Milnor plus Berlin, that is, you know what? I got a capital B, and I'm not going to do a capital B. I'm going to do a lowercase b just to keep it consistent. Now, this is okay. Again, moving kind of fast. The key elements are here. Me, my name, Berlin. Now, believe it or not, depending on who you show your portfolio to, they're going to look right past this. They're not going to see Milnor. They're not going to see Berlin. They're going to just open the thing and start looking. And then they're going to ask you what this is about. So this comes into play in a minute here. The other thing that I might want to try just to clean things up. My initial thought was I would put some contact information on the back here to keep it simple, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to extend this. I'm also going to extend this up and make sure that my orders, I'm going to take this text and move it out of here for now. I'm going to get rid of this image. I'm going to go back to place photo, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to make this all the way across. Same image. And now I'm going to move this back up. I'm actually going to save this. I'm going to click on the image, and I'm going to arrange. I'm going to send it backwards so that my text is visible again. And that, hang on, it's going to the other screen. That I think I like more because it just sort of takes care of the cover for now. And I think it's legible, Milnor plus Berlin. Again, I'm moving quickly here. I would make some changes to this, but I think we're going to keep going. That's pretty simple. Okay, the first inside cover, leave this blank. This page right here, however, I don't want to hit them too much. I don't want to hit them with an image right off the bat. What I'm going to hit them with is my logo. And I'm definitely not going to keep it that size. I'm going to make this very small. I'm going to move this up here, even smaller. Make sure, hang on, private chat, questions, IG. Okay, these are questions. I'm just checking the chat, make sure everything, you guys can see everything still and everything is fine. So I'm putting a logo in here. And a logo, again, is a little hint, a little reminder that that's what my logo looks like. So if we go back here, you got the cover, inside cover's blank. I'm hitting a little logo, nothing there, nothing required yet. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to the next spread, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the cover. I'm going to click on this text box. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to this page, and I'm going to paste it because I want to remind them again. Milnor, Berlin. Trust me, I've given people a printed publication that had the title on the cover. There was a half title page inside, and then there was another half title page. And about 10 frames into the story, the reviewer said, "What is this story about?" And it was literally, the title was like Sicily. They had looked by 3 different times where I had said, this is about Sicily. There were 10 images in, and they were like, huh, what is this? So I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt here. I'm saying to myself, okay, look, I need to give them a little second dose of what this is. Now I'm going to start showing imagery. And one of the things that I find interesting, and I'm going to place a photo. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to bleed this photo, which means running it off the edges of the side of the page. One thing that I like to establish right away in my portfolios is that I photograph people. I engage. As you're looking at this portrait of this guy, who, by the way, was the coolest guy in the world. He's in a flea market in Berlin. I saw this outfit and his hat, and he just looked nice. And I went up to him and I said, that wraparound one-piece sheepskin, whatever it is really cool. And he and we talked for about 45 minutes. He was fantastic. And I said, hey, can I make a picture of you? And you can see in his eyes, you can see the little bit of catch light. I popped a little bit of strobe in on him. But this is the kind of picture that I want to establish very quickly, that I am comfortable doing this kind of work. I'm comfortable shooting portraits. Portraiture is the gold standard of usefulness when it comes to documentary photography. Street photography is fine, urban landscapes are fine, details are fine, but engaging with people you don't know is something I want to establish right away. So the other thing that I want to establish right away, and here's where I'm going to scold some people just for fun, is I need to get my contact information in here right away. So I'm going to say, whoops, definitely do not want that typeface. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to use, let's see here. What do I want to use? I want to use, let me go back to the top. I'll use Josephine Sans just for fun. And I'm going to take this size way down. I'm going to go like 10. And I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this. Okay, I'm going to move this. So I'm going to say, select all. I'm going to go Daniel. Oh, hang on. Went back to yellow. Hold the phone. I'm going to go to black. And I'm going to say, let's go in here. And I'm going to Daniel Milnor. Here's where we get interesting. I am going to studio, and I'm going to go, I don't know, 888-675-4321. That's my studio number. Now I'm going to go mobile, and I'm going to say 888-876-8890. Now I'm going to say, let's see what my email is going to be. It's going to be photo supreme at gmails.com. And I'm going to, let's see here, email address. I don't necessarily need a mailing address, but I'm going to say, okay, on the web, I am at shifter.media. And I'm going to put basically the classic contact information in here. And this is really important. You have got to put an email address and you have got to put a phone number. This is a modern phenomenon that absolutely blows me away, is people only listing a social media handle. If you do that, you are leaving all of the best clients behind, because the best clients are not on social. So there are people in their companies that are on social, and in a personal life, everybody's on social. But the people who make decisions at companies like CFOs, CEOs are often not on there because they don't leave digital trails. So they will not go to Instagram to find you. If you only list an Instagram handle, they will never hire you as a photographer. So what you want is, you need two things specifically: phone number and email address. Typically, those associations are going to begin with email. And if things go well in the email is when you transfer over to the phone, and that's where the negotiating and the planning and everything takes place, is on the phone, not necessarily through email. It'll typically always be a combination of the two all the way through the shoot. But my point is, phone number and email is not something to avoid. And if you need to get like an extra phone line that you only use for your business or your photography passion or whatever it is, then you can do that. Just make sure that it's in there. Now, this is a little bit small. When I look at this, hang on. When I look at this page, oh, this is bugging me why it's doing that. When I look at this page, that's a little small. It's also a little high. So I would go back to this. I would move this a little bit, and I would probably go, let's say we go up to 12-point typeface. That's a little easier to read. When I do this and I bring this over, and it doesn't want to come over. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to do one thing really quickly. I'm going to jump out of here. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm just going to come right back in, but I'm going to only share, only share a window. I'm only going to share this one. and see if that remedies this a little bit. So when I go here and I preview this, hang on. Okay, that is not working really well here. Okay, that didn't work. So I'm going to go back one more time. I'm going to share this entire screen, and I'm going to go here and see if this works. What's happening is when I'm hitting the preview button, it's popping up on my other monitor, and it's not popping up on this monitor. So I'm going to see if this works. No, that did not work at all. Okay, one more time. Entire screen and screen 2, share. All right. Oh no, this is not working at all now. That's not good. So let me see here. Preview. This is working, and let's see here. All right. I'm going to do something really quick here. Sorry about this, but we're going to have to not sure why this is not doing that. Window, entire screen. And let's try this. Yeah, this is so bizarre. It's not letting me. Let me try something real quick. Let me move this over here. No. Well, this has not happened before. It is. All right, we're going to do one more thing here. Sorry about this, folks. I was trying to make this easier, and it's not. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to unplug the other monitor. There we go. Back to project. Okay, so you see how clean this page is, this spread is? That's what we're after. So if we go back here and we go to Milnor and Berlin, go back to the cover, you've got a pretty simple, kind of mysterious looking, a little bit of a cover here. And then you've got a logo. Then you've got a reminder of what it is. And then you've got a single image with contact information. Now, if I wanted to, I could go up here to place text, and I could say all caps. I could go in here and I could say, hang on. I could go in here and say contact. And I would probably make that much. Oh, you can't see my screen. All right, hang on. Share screen, entire screen. Okay. How's that? Now can you see my screen? I don't know why it wasn't showing up before, but hopefully you can see it because it says screen across the bottom. So what I could do is I could just go in here and I could say, look, I'm just to re-emphasize the point, I could say this is my contact information right here so that they know, they've seen it. Okay, if I need to get in touch with this person, that's what I need. That's what I need to do. So we're going to move on. And now is where we get into the interesting part of really like populating the files. So we're going to do another image here. Let me reduce the size a little bit. Now is when you're into the point where you're saying, I want to show off my photography and I want to give a little bit more information. And this is where some of you earlier were talking about, should it be a story? What do you want to, what do you want this to be? And if you choose to put an artist statement in, which is not a bad idea, because again, once they look at your imagery and they go, wow, this person can make images that I like, you might be able to get them to spend a bit more time with your work. So I'm going to do something here just for fun, is I'm going to create an artist statement. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, like, I'm going to do something a bit crazy. 700. Go here. I'm going to move this. I'm going to go here. I'm going to place this here. This is like representative of artist statement. And then I would go here and I'd say, like, I'm going to place a little bit of text here. I'm going to go in here and this is going to go down to 10. I'm going to go back to Josephine Sans, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to write. I'm going to paste all this in here so that, and then if I really wanted to let them know, I would say, okay, well, this is an artist statement. I'm going to go in here. Artist statement. So that they know what it is. I misspelled it, but you get the point. And so when you look at this spread, you've got, okay, if someone at some point wants to come back and read a little bit more about what this is about, I have an artist statement at the front. But what I'm doing here is I'm letting this breathe. I'm letting the front of this breathe a little bit. And now this is where we get interesting. We start going into the main body of photographs. I'm going to place a photo here. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go across the gutter because I'm feeling a little risky. And I got lucky on this picture, by the way. That's someone in the Jewish Memorial in Berlin, but look at the umbrella. The umbrella has Berlin written on it 1,000 times. There's no one else in the memorial, and the little bits of white on the shoes make all the difference. But this is an image that is a standalone portfolio style image. I don't want anything else on the page. I don't want a page number. I don't want a caption. I don't need anything. This is about me saying to the viewer, this is the kind of picture I can capture if you give me an assignment in Berlin. That's what it's basically saying. So now I'm just going to be basically going through and I'm going to build out a few more photographs here where I'm kind of going across the border, the gutter. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for a mix of photographs. I'm looking for things that are different, people, non-people. And this one, Berlin is a big cycling city. I think this looks pretty simple. Again, moving kind of quick. I'm not thrilled with how this is cropped right here. So I might go here and I might zoom in a little bit and then move it a tiny bit. I don't necessarily need to see the rest of that guy on the right. Pretty simple. And I can also move these things around. But you know what? I'm thinking I'm going to make a change here in a minute, but I want to do one more. I want to do one more spread here. Let me see. Let's see here. If I'm going across, and again, I'm bleeding these images. You see how the image is running to the edge of the page? That's something I'm not sure I'm in love with at the moment. I like this picture. These are kids hanging out. And I see these things here, these pillars, and it just feels like Berlin. So look at this. Let me go back to the beginning here. So we're back at the cover. Logo, Milnor Berlin, human element, guy can shoot portraits, contact information, artist statement if anybody's got the time to read it. And now we're into the imagery. Boom, boom, boom. But something's bugging me. And what's bugging me is I don't think I like the bleed. I don't want the bleed. I want a border. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to and I'm also going to reduce the size of this photograph because I'm losing the height of these pillars. Look how much higher those pillars are. That's what I want. I want those to be smaller. So I'm going to shrink this even more because I want to get the maximum amount of pillar. And look at where the crop is. I'm not losing anything in that crop. I'm still getting the pillars. I'm going to go up a little bit so I get their shadows. So I think I like this border way better. Let me shrink this a little bit at the top here, come down, make this a little smaller. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the same thing to these. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to move this over. And then I like the border. The border to me feels, and I don't know, maybe it's my age. I really like bordered photography. I think that looks cleaner than the bleed. I like having that little bit of border. It shows the full rebate of the image, which means it shows you the entire image that I made. And certain people, when they look at your work, they want to see that full image to know that you can shoot full frame in camera in the field without having to crop and do a lot of post-production work. That saves time. So they want to know that what you see in the field was your vision. So I like this better. Yeah, this is starting to take shape. Now, when I get to a certain point and I have these pages, I can always jump out here to the Manage Pages feature, which is my single favorite button of the whole software. And I can, let's say that I thought maybe that was the image I want to lead with. I can swap these around and I can change my sequence. I think I'm pretty well set with these. I could always go artist statement first if I wanted to. That's acceptable, I think. I'm going to go back to the project, lay out a couple more pages here. And then I want to show you a trick at the end. It's not a trick. It's really not a trick, but it's something that you should ponder and consider. So let's go back here. And I like this picture a lot. I like this picture, but that's not working. See how that crop? Not working. So I'm going to expand that a little bit. Or let me see here. I'm actually going to shrink this down a little. I'm going to shrink this. And then I'm going to move this over about like that. That's kind of nice. I like that. Now I could, if I wanted to, if I do this, I could probably move this over. If I want to juxtapose these images a little bit, I could go back in and I could size this up a little bit so it takes up that space. And I could go here just to bounce the images. Most of those first few images were on the left-hand page, and now I'm going back to the right-hand page. But again, simple, keeping my borders consistent and showing a range of work. I'm going to do one more spread. And then I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's definitely a cheat. I'm going to go here. And I think what I want, there's another picture I haven't really seen up close, but I think it might work. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Now, you see how the images that are used in the book have this little check mark on here? I can go up here and say, just show me the ones that I haven't used. So it cleans up the timeline a little bit. It cleans it up. I think it's this one. This is actually not Berlin. This is Hamburg. Don't tell anyone. But I kind of like this. I love the revolution across the bottom. I'm going to hit the auto image adjust button here just for fun to see what the software does with this. It might open the midtones a little bit. This looks a little muddy to me, but we'll see here when it grinds through. Maybe. Here, 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 here. Actually, I don't like this sequence. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to what this was before. And I'm going to go here. And then now I think that's a little better. But yeah, this, and you can see where that crop is. I'm not losing anything. All the groups of people are accounted for. Again, this is Hamburg, not Berlin, but whatever. And I love the graffiti. I think graffiti in Germany is fantastic. It's so much a part of the cities. And I love that yellow revolution across the bottom. I think this is really, really nice because a lot of cities, Berlin feels like it's in perpetual revolution in a good way. And I think this is in Hamburg was fantastic. So I think the concept of this plays well. And then at the end, guess what I'm going to do again? I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to do it again at the back because, and let me just have a look here at why do you think I would put this at the back? And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the contacts. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paste it and I'm going to put it over here. And then I'm going to select all this and I'm going to go back to the left side. I'm going to move this over. And then again, I would also take the, where I have this contact at the top and I would go to the back and just let them know this is the contact information. Whoops, paste. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. I'll just bring it again. Go up here, go to this, copy, go down here, go to paste, bring this over. And then again, here is why you do this. Because the majority of people in the world are right-handed. The portfolio goes in their left hand and they open it from the back. Believe it or not. My father used to read magazines from back to front. I could never figure it out. But when I started working for Blurb and I started handing people my portfolios or my books, and I noticed how many people opened it from the back, I was like, I can't explain it, but it happens. So I'm doubling up on the contact information. I'm doubling up on the title of the portfolio. I'm doubling up on them seeing my name so that they remember Milnor. Berlin is less important, but it's Milnor. Here's my contact information. It doesn't matter if you open it from the front or the back. You're going to get what you need. So this is a small portfolio. This is only 20 pages. Obviously, if I want to add pages, I can make this as big as possible. But if you go to the manage pages and kind of see the overall thing, this is like a bare bones, really nice thing to have. This is simple. I love limiting myself to less than 10 pictures and saying, in the modern age and the modern attention span, how much time and attention am I really going to get? I need to be able to make something that is so solid and so good that people can get the gist of it right away. Now, this, if I was going to eliminate something here, this spread is, I would say the right side is more important than the left. This is kind of a burner image. It's kind of a funny image to me because that's me in the little screen of the DJI. So I'm filming myself. But why would this be important if I was showing this? Let's say that you've been a prosumer photographer for much of your life, but you want to start dabbling in a little bit of professional photography. And let's say that you want to do travel photography. You want to get sent to Berlin to do travel photography for an editorial magazine client. So putting this picture in, what does this also tell them? It tells them that you can also shoot motion because, oh, we can send this person to make still pictures in Berlin, but if we need a little motion content, which is pretty much every client in the world now, I want motion, I want stills, I want copy. They want a lot of stuff, right? Because we have all these different channels to populate with work. So this is a nice little tell. It's also a clean, simple, easy picture to read. There's no confusion about what it is. So, but is this page mandatory? No, because I could easily, remember when I said you need an elevator pitch? Let's say that the person is looking through and they get to this picture and they get to this picture and they go, okay, this project is intriguing. Now, what is this? I would have this memorized, and that's what it would be. I wouldn't read it like I'm reading off a template, but I would have that memorized so that my elevator pitch is ready to go. And that way I wouldn't necessarily need it in here. I kind of like it because I like portfolios that have a little bit more design, and I like to mix it up a little bit. This can get kind of old after a while when you're just showing picture, picture, picture. It's like the photography books that I buy now are very different than the photography books that I bought 30 years ago. I bought a lot of books 30 years ago that were just picture, 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 picture. And now I like things that are a little bit more story-based. So I kind of like the different things. So that is kind of a quick portfolio. Again, soft cover. It's a little bit more approachable. When you hand somebody a soft cover book, there's a little bit less trepidation that it's a precious object that they have to be really careful with. It's like if you've ever been to a portfolio review and a lot of people will show prints at a portfolio review, and someone will inevitably walk in with like 40 by 60 prints in a giant case with white gloves. And anybody that wants to look at those prints has to put on the white gloves and they have to deal with these huge things. That's not really, people don't really like that much anymore. It's the person who comes in with a box of 8 by 10s that you can spread out on the table. That's a more effective technique. So something to keep in mind. Okay. So I am going to go back here. I'm going to stop sharing. And we're going to go back and we're going to turn this into a Q&A. But before I forget, I'm going to give you the bonus tip now, because I know some of you are like, Milnor, he's dangling this bonus tip. He's holding it above us, making us stay on this call. No, I'm not going to do that. So the other thing that the portfolio doubles as, and I have a story for you. The portfolio is an awesome field guide for when you are doing photography in the field and someone comes up to you and says, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing here?" And you say, "I'm a photographer." And they go, "Well, what do you mean? What kind of thing are you doing?" And then you have some, if you're like me, you have some strange story that only makes sense to you. And you try to explain it to them. And 10 seconds in, they glaze over and they're like, "I don't get it. No, you shouldn't be here. And no, I don't want you to photograph me." However, the flip side is the same person says, "What are you doing here?" And you go, "I'm doing this." And you hand it to them. This works unbelievably well. So back to Berlin. We were in Berlin. It was 3 or 4 days into the workshop. The students had the afternoon to work on a specific project. It was what they wanted, but we gave them an assignment, very specific assignment. One of the students, who's an intrepid sort, decides to rent one of those little Lime scooters. And he goes as far as he can on the Lime scooter before it putters out in a puff of dust. He drops the Lime scooter. He gets in a bus. He takes the bus for a while. He gets off the bus. He gets on a train and he goes out into some random Berlin neighborhood, totally unresearched, just goes out to see what he can find. And he looks over and there is a group of like late teens, stylish, hoods, cool sneakers, like, you know, European urban suburbia teens. Not the easiest group of people to photograph. They're super digital savvy. They're all online. They know that whatever you do might end up online immediately. And they're a little nervous. So what does he do? He pulls out a 7x7 Blurb soft cover portfolio and hands it to these kids, these teens. The teens were like, "This is yours? You did this? This book is yours? This is unbelievable." And guess who starts posing immediately for him? That's the double duty that a portfolio does. The portfolio is a business card. It is a calling card. It is a statement. And what it does is it separates you from a tourist. It separates you from an Instagrammer. And it separates you from a hobbyist. Because people see that printed book and they go, "Wow, this is yours." I have done this 100 times. New Mexico is a tricky place to photograph, especially when you're down near the border. And I always have a guide with me. And I've been pulled over 1,000,000 times by law enforcement. They're trying to be safe and make sure people are okay. And they're always like, "What are you doing here?" And I remember before I had these portfolios, I would try to explain it. And trying to explain a photo project to a Border Patrol agent, it doesn't match up. And so finally I would just be like, "Here." And I would hand them these magazines and they'd be like, oh, I get it. And then ultimately what would happen sometimes is they would start making recommendations. They'd be like, "Oh, if you want to photograph this, you should go talk to so-and-so in this next town. It's great. Works like a charm." That's my final bonus tip. So we're going to take some questions now. And I apologize again for the little digital snafu in the middle. I don't know what was happening, but you know me, you know my tech savviness or lack thereof. So the fact that we're still here is a miracle. So question from Jimmy. What order to prefer to view images? Portfolio, gallery, books, or websites? Ooh, that is a good question. So what order do I prefer to see? Typically, it's not the order I prefer. I would always prefer to see a printed piece first, because again, I think there's so much intention put into printed pieces. And Jimmy, some of the people that you work with, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The amount of time and energy they put into their printed pieces, there is no fat. There's nothing left to chance. So I would prefer to see print, but a lot of times it's unlikely because let's say that, I think it was Christine who's in Norway. Is Christine going to send me a printed piece? Probably not. So website is number one. And then I would go website to printed piece. And I can tell pretty much everything I need to know by the website. And the website to me is you have freedom to do what you want. To me, one of the most interesting things on the website, a lot of people go straight to the about page. And I do too, because I like to see a picture of what the person looks like. I think that that's interesting to kind of see what they look like, how they dress, if they have a sense of humor, if they take a funny photo or a serious photo. And I also love the blog or the journal. I want to see what's happening behind the scenes and not just the work. So I would say website first, books 2, gallery 3, and then probably social would be last for me. But again, I'm in the minority. Okay, next question. Should I use black and white photos or only color in my portfolio, or can I mix them up if they're strong enough? Yeah, you can mix them if they're strong enough. I think I always like to see a consistency. I looked at someone's work a couple of days ago. Someone sent me a book and it was, I would say 85% black and white and 15% color. And I told them to take the color out because it wasn't balanced enough. And I didn't find there to be a specific reason why there was suddenly color. You know, I think with a portfolio, again, you can definitely mix and match. I think it's always better to kind of stay consistent. However, again, when I said I put the contact information in the title in the back of the portfolio, sometimes you kind of have to beat people on the head. So if you show a portfolio that's all black and white, you will get someone that says, oh, you don't shoot color. And you say, yeah, I shoot color. So I've done plenty of portfolios with a single color image. And that is specifically to address the question you asked. It is because I know inevitably someone's going to go, oh, we can't hire that guy who only shoots black and white. No, I shoot color. So just reminding you. All right. Are you leaving space on the right or left of every portfolio page for additional text? No, I'm not leaving that space for text. That is white space. And white space is not empty space. White space is an object. So think about that. Let me repeat that. When you see, let's say that all of the images in the portfolio, instead of running across the gutter, let's say that they were either on a right-hand page or a left-hand page. And the opposite page was left white space. That's not an empty page. White space is an object, just like a body of text or a photograph. And you want to use it strategically. So the reason why there was nothing in that white space is because when someone turns that page in the portfolio, I don't want them thinking about anything else. I want them looking at one thing. No page number, no caption, no copy. This is about you and me and you understanding the quality of photograph that I can make. I don't want anything else. So the white space is done purposely. Let's see. I've only ever had photo books printed. Are the trade books and magazines good enough quality for photography? Absolutely, Sam. I absolutely love trade and magazine. They are, in some ways, again, I tell this to anyone who will listen. I tell this to my 14-year-old niece, even when she's not listening. The magazines and trade books and photo books, one is not better than the other. They are just different tools. And yes, they are absolutely good enough to use this. In fact, the big zine project that I do, that was printed in trade. And also all those portfolios that I showed you earlier, the black and white series, those are all trade books. I have a 240-page magazine portfolio that goes back through my entire career. That is just random photographs from my entire career, which I absolutely love. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that. I've had a lot of people ask to buy that, even though I've never made it publicly for sale. So yes, trade in magazine. And also, if you do a big lay flat book, let's say that costs you $200, but those things make an impact and there's nothing lost in the gutter in a lay flat. So those things are amazing, but they're more expensive. Having a trade or magazine in tandem is a super smart way to go because you want it to leave behind. What else? In a non-lay flat photo book, how much the image will lose in the cleavage? This has been a problem in my previous books. First of all, love the cleavage description of the gutter. I think that's interesting and funny. And you're going to lose a little bit, but in the Blurb software, there's a little pink area, which is a print safe area that pops up when you're designing, and it'll show you what you're going to lose in the gutter. So there's no mystery about what it's going to be. And that's why when I was moving those pictures around, I was showing in certain pictures like, hey, I'm not losing anything here. The kids in front of the building with the enormous pillars, I could just see that in between the gaps of kids, perfect place to put the gutter because you're not going to lose anything. And also, when someone who is used to looking at photography looks at a book, and this totally caught me by surprise 20 years ago. I handed a portfolio to a photographer in LA, and he was a publisher for a long time, and he's a very successful photographer. He took my portfolio, and I had stuff in the gutter, and he took my book and he just bent it backwards. And so he could see everything that was in there. And I thought, I can't believe he did that. You could hear the spine like almost give out. And I thought, is he trying to secretly destroy my portfolio? Is my work that bad? But no, it was because he was like, I want to see everything that's in that gutter. I don't really care. So think about the pink space area and you shouldn't have a problem. But again, if you have something super sensitive, make a lay flat. And again, you can do a 7/7 lay flat. So you don't have to do a massive lay flat. You can do a smaller one to save some money. Thanks for that question, Mata. That's a cool name, by the way. Karen, did you set the size of the white border around the photos to be consistent? I didn't in this test because I was moving so fast, but yes, I would keep all the borders consistent around the images. And I would basically just, in the Blurb software, you can design a spread and you can save that spread and then just go back and use it again and again so that the border is going to be exactly the same. So, and oftentimes I'll just, when we were looking at those spreads and you could see the pink design safe area, I just drag the photo box inside that pink area. So I know it's the same from page to page. It's a good question. All these are good questions. Let's see, what's next? Oh, this is a tricky one from Yulitha. Yulitha, how do I decide which dimensions are best for a portfolio, photo book, or magazine? Great question, tricky answer. What format did you shoot? Did you shoot square? Did you shoot rectangle landscape? Do you shoot a lot of portraits in vertical format? And that will be the first indicator. If you shot square, you could do a 7/7 or a 12/12. If you shoot a lot of landscapes, you could do the 8/10 landscape format. If you shoot a lot of portraiture and have a lot of vertical images, you could do an 8/10 portrait book. So I think aspect ratio and the kind of techniques that you're using will be the first indicator as to how to get to the correct format. Having said that, to give yourself a little test, most of the traditionally published photo books that I have in the other room, they are all portrait aspect ratio, which surprises a lot of people because people think, well, photography, most of it's landscape format. So they're probably doing landscape aspect ratio books. They're not, it's portrait. And that is a really challenging design puzzle. I will often take a body of work and I will design in Bookright, I will design an 8/10 portrait book, even if I have no intention of printing it, because it's like working out. I'm testing myself. Can I make this work with all these different aspect ratios in a portrait book? It's an ultimate design challenge. Good question though. All right, what's next? If it's another really good question. If it's not a story, how do you sequence the images in the portfolio? Strongest first. Great question. Strong first, strong last. Because again, what happens if you put all your strong work in the beginning or the strongest of the 10, let's say the first 4, you're like, I'm a genius. These are life-changing. Everyone's going to sob when they see these. I'm going to put all 4 of them in the front. And then the joker who shows up to look at the work opens it from the back. So I love to start strong. I love to end strong. And in the middle, I try to mix. I will mix portraiture with urban landscape. I will mix the distances at which I'm making pictures because again, these are tells. This tells the person looking like, oh, this person can work in any environment. They can shoot portraits. They can do urban landscapes. They can work close. They can work far away. They can use wide lenses. They can use long lenses. So you want to pace that through the middle, but starting and ending strong is really key. Great questions. How do you decide what is your best work when you're so connected to it? Oh, Ron, these are maybe the best questions we've ever had consistently. Ron, you got to get a second opinion, and you got to get an opinion from somebody who knows what they're doing. You can start with friends or family. In fact, I always make a joke about this, but it's very real. When I lived in California, I would edit a body of work, and I always made small prints, and I would lay those prints out on my living room floor. And when the UPS driver came and rang my doorbell, I would open the door, and those guys are in a hurry. I would say, hey, put those in the order you think it makes the most sense. And believe it or not, there was never any hesitation. The UPS driver would come in and he'd be like, bup, 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 bup. That's what I would do. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And you start to see consistencies. But when I have a project that's a serious project, I go to a mentor. I go in Santa Fe, I've got a couple of people that I go to, and I know they're going to be honest. They are going to be unmerciful, which is what I need as a photographer. I need them to be unmerciful. I need them to say, this is not good enough, or these are great. This one over here is wrecking the whole thing. It's not good. So that's what I get, is a second opinion from somebody that you can trust, that has good work, that knows their way around how to edit something. I have a funny story about this, but it's probably too long. Simon, design is a whole other skill. Yes, it is, but it can make images shine, sink or shine. Ultimately, design will be judged because it's part of the zine or book. How do we get into this? Oof. So this is maybe the biggest understatement. So design is hugely impactful part of anything that we put into print form. The reason why we're actually doing an upcoming one of these events about design, and I'm teaching it. And I think I'll give you a second to stop laughing. I'm teaching it, but it's design 101. And design, to your point, is like a language, and it is comprised of multiple dialects. And ultimately, to be very good at design, you need to speak all of the dialects. That is page design, typography, editing, sequencing. All of those things work together to make the best books. So design is about study and about practice. It's about looking at photography books or looking at portfolios, figuring out what resonates with you, and then asking why. Why does this spread feel so good? I mean, here's the thing. One of my favorite photography books is called Library of Dust. I don't own a copy. I want a copy, but I don't own a copy. The designer is Bob Awfuldish. And there are pages in the book where the typeface is too small to read. That sounds absurd, but it's not. When you see the spreads in the book, you're like, this looks fantastic. Would I have done that, have come up with that idea? No, I would have got to make this large enough for everybody to read. So there's all kinds of things that come from practice and learning. The upside to this, the positive response that I can give you, is that the resources for learning design are extensive. And this is just my personal opinion. If on a scale of 1 to 10 of being totally unprepared and untogether, or being totally together, the average design studio is way at the top. The designers are so smart together. They know about photography. They know about writing. They know about all kinds of things in the creative atmosphere, not just design. So I love things like Design Observer. I look at trying to think of the what's the design organization? What's the letters I'm looking for? AIGA, is that it? I'm spacing. Anyway, great design organizations out there. There's a lot of photo book specific designers. I love Yolanda Cuomo in New York is one of my favorite designers. Zoe Sadakirski in Sydney is another. There's a ton out there. Let's see. Should your portfolio consist of only a couple lens choices, or can we go crazy with lens choice? It doesn't really factor in. It's just about the imagery and how the imagery works. If you shot the whole thing with a 24, it doesn't really matter. I think as long as it the images are good and they kind of make sense together. When you look at most assignments, there is a cohesiveness that they are looking for. So I wouldn't necessarily throw a bunch of like fisheye stuff in with a bunch of telephoto stuff, because I think the viewer is going to be like, I don't know what this person's doing. Are they a fisheye photographer, or are they a long lens person? I would probably keep it more cohesive, because when you go on assignment, they're looking for cohesion. They're looking for consistency and cohesion. I think it's one reason why it's really important to have more than one portfolio, because this is what happens. Let's say that you did a project on Panama, and you did this Panama project, and it's really good. And you go to show your portfolio, and the reviewer looks at that portfolio and they go, wow, this is like really good. This is a great portfolio on Panama. You know what that person's thinking? That person's going, could have been a fluke. I don't know. Maybe it's a one-off. Can this person repeat this in Ghana? And you're like, oh, funny you should ask. Here's my other portfolio on Ghana, so that they have an idea that you can do this more than once. That is a key element to the portfolio scene. It's why I always love having in reserve. It's like, wow, we saw this project that you did. This is amazing. But what they're not saying is, we're not sure you can do this again. And then you, being the crafty photographer who now knows how to make a portfolio, you're like, oh, by the way, I've got 3 more portfolios you can look at. So it's always good to have resources in reserve. Let's see here. We got 4 minutes. Maybe we can do one more question. How many photos or pages do you include in a soft cover portfolio? Okay, so that's a trick question. It's really hard to answer that, because again, if you've only got 7 images, then you're going to put 7 images in that portfolio. However, there is something about the physicality of a portfolio. So imagine if you built a portfolio and it only had 20 pages, but you made it a hardcover. The hardcover feels like it outweighs the actual guts of the portfolio. It feels unbalanced. So with a soft cover portfolio, you don't have to worry about that as much, because the soft cover is thinner, it's lighter. You could get away with 20, 25, 30 pages. So that's the short answer. I know that's kind of a nebulous answer, but with a soft cover, you have more leniency for fewer pages than you do with a hardcover, or something like a lay flat. All right. I think we are winding down. I want to thank, first of all, I wasn't joking. These are the best questions. And I know there are 150 questions in the chat that I can see that we didn't get to. That's what always happens. But look, that is a good thing. It means that you are active and you are thinking about this. Making portfolios should be fun. It's challenging. You're going to have to get rid of pictures that you don't want to get rid of. But when you hear people say, like, this one doesn't fit, this one doesn't fit, and you say, well, that's my favorite image, they're going to say it doesn't matter because it doesn't fit. It's a challenge, but always keep it fun. And the best part is, when you start to design a portfolio, it means that you have a feeling that you have work that's good enough to put into a portfolio. And that's what we're all after. So enjoy it. Have fun. We appreciate you being here. We're going to do more and more of these events. So keep an eye out for the next Create With Me. And again, thanks to the team behind the scenes. And I apologize for the technical snafu there in the middle. But, you know, it's Milnor. You're going to get at least one snafu digitally, technically, every time I do something. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rick, and everybody else that's chimed in. And I really appreciate you guys using the chat. And we will see you in the near future.